and training workshop. This program is a flagship initiative of the Naksh Foundation. I am Manata and I'll be leading you through the program and supporting you throughout the session. Naksh Foundation is dedicated to social empowerment and community welfare. Through the project CyberShield, the foundation addresses the urgent need for digital literacy in an increasingly connected world. CyberShield was built on a simple belief. If every volunteer learns how to teach cyber safety well, we can protect thousands of people who have never heard phishing, fraud, farming, or grooming or digital rights. With the end of the last evenings of the 6 day workshop, we are going to shape ourselves into trainers who speak with clarity, confidence, and purpose. These sessions are the foundation. Before we teach anyone else, we must understand the battlefield we're standing on, the digital threats, the psychology of scams, and the tricks criminals use to control their targets. If you're ready to start this final journey, let's start our final session. To lead us through this vital final session, we are honored to have Mr. Saeed Mohammad Haroon. He is a legal researcher and a public interest lawyer working at the intersection of technology, constitutional rights, and public policy. He also serves as volunteer legal counsel at the Software Freedom Law Center, India, focusing on digital rights through strategic litigation and research on issues like internet shutdown, free speech, surveillance, platform regulation, and data protection. Mr. Haroon is actively engaged in regional and global internet governance processes, having contributed to the Indian Governance Forum (IGF), Asia Pacific Regional (IGF), and the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum. A law graduate from Jamia Millia Islama, his work focuses on the impact of emerging technologies, including AI and biometric systems, on civil liberties. We're honored to welcome you, sir, today. Without a further ado, I would like to hand over the mic to you, sir.
Thank you, Manita. I hope I'm visible and audible well.
Yes, sir, you're audible and visible.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I begin this session. Manita has given a very warm introduction already, so I won't go deep into that. But yeah, today we're gonna speak on about the advanced financial frauds, which includes UPI, QR codes, and instant payment methods. So the idea here is to understand that the whole policy regulation, how these frauds are happening, and what are the legal recourses and safe steps you can inculcate within yourselves to be safe from this. Now, I don't want to make this a lecture per se. I'd request that if possible, the audience can interact a bit. And just to make this conversation not so boring, I'll begin with some case studies. I hope that can set a good base for the conversation as we go ahead. So yeah, my first and simple question is that how many of you here use UPI or scan QR codes at least once a day? Maybe you can show with your hands or reactions. That would give some ideas. All right. So yeah, a lot of us do. Even I do that. So what that tells us that for most of us, UPI has become as a routine, as routine as unlocking our phones. I am a victim of that. Even I do that. And the reason why UPI is so prevalent these days, it's because it's very instant, it's convenient, and it's cheap. And for those exact qualities, that is the speed, ubiquity, and the low friction whenever it comes to transaction, it also makes up for a perfect playground for frauds. So over the next few minutes, I want to do three things with you. First is to walk you through the real stories of how are people actually losing money, show you the law, regulation, and the technology, how they're trying to keep up, and perhaps leave you with some practical tools, what to watch for and what to do if something goes wrong. This is not just about do not share your PIN or do not do such things. This is a complete study of the fraud ecosystem around these instant payment methods, which has in the recent times become highly organized and frankly quite sophisticated. All right, so to begin, let me start with the case that reached the Supreme Court of India. So now imagine an elderly couple who's retired now and they're living a fairly quiet life, and they suddenly get a phone call, and the caller introduces himself as a Mumbai police officer. He tells them that, sir, your Aadhaar number is linked to a drug trafficking and money laundering case, and there is a non-bailable warrant against you. And this non-bailable warrant has been issued by the Supreme Court. If you do not cooperate right now, your accounts will be frozen and you may be arrested. So that's a simple thing that's happening. Obviously, for anyone who does not know about this, they would be terrified. What happens after this is that their call is now transferred to another person over a video call who claims himself to be a CBI officer. And that person shows them documents which look like official documents because they have the seals, because there are court orders. They are made in the format that an official document would be made. This person tells them that there is an investigation, and this investigation against you is confidential. They cannot talk to anyone, and they cannot even talk to their children or their relatives even. Now, this is a process that goes on for days. So over several days, under psychological pressure, they are instructed to move their savings through RTGS or IMPS or UPI to quote unquote safe court controlled accounts. And by the end of this, they have lost more than 1 crore rupees. Now, this is not our usual frauds. This is not a usual fraud case where you are clicking on random accounts, random links, and this is just not your carelessness that is making you lose this amount of money. This is custodial intimidation by phone and by video. So for this case, when this came to the light, the Supreme Court took suo motu cognizance of this case, and the division bench of the Supreme Court asked the CBI about the whole process of what's going on. So CBI told the Supreme Court that these digital arrest scams have drained around 3,000 crores rupees across India, and these are often targeted to senior citizens. For now, the court has ordered a pan-India CBI probe and is considering directions to the banks on better flagging and alerts. So, what are the better flagging and alerts? What are the directions given by the court? Is something that we'll discuss. Now, before I move ahead, I want to ask you this: that when you hear such story, what strikes you as the main failure? Is it the law? Is it the technology? Or is it awareness? Out of these three. Anyone? Awareness. All right. Fine. So I see a complete consensus on awareness being the major cause of this. One person says, Shashank says that these are all three. So even I'd argue that this is all three. The reason why we'll speak of that. But let me now move to a different case of action, because most of us who are sitting here are not senior citizens. So let's discuss a case study of what happens with people of our generation. So this is something that we might have received, and this has happened with one of my colleagues as well, where our boss texted them that, okay, I'm currently traveling and I need to make an urgent payment for this. Would you just get me this Amazon voucher and send it across to us? So thankfully we caught it. But what happens here is that these things come out as a small favor that is being asked. So, and this comes from a known person that you might know in a personal capacity or a professional capacity. They either send a QR code or request you money, and when they request money from you, you may be shown a screen on your UPI app where you have to enter your PIN or you have to buy something and send it to them, which they have obviously mentioned that they will pay you later. This system works on trust, wherein you have been asked by a trustworthy person or a person that you know of, and based on that trust, you are made to do some things that results into any amount getting deducted from your account. When you reach out to the actual person, maybe when you calling them, they would say, "Bro, I never messaged you. My WhatsApp or my email might be cloned, and that's why you're receiving these messages." So, based on the data that we found out from the Delhi police and multiple bank accounts, fraudsters are sending QR codes on WhatsApp or SMSs, and these things are termed as refund or a cashback kind of a thing, where the main premise of this kind of a fraud is that I will send you money once the job is done or once something is done. I will send you money, and that never happens. Most of the time, it leads to you losing more money than you were ever promised. So, with that example, now we'll jump to a little bit more complex situation. Now, this is both these instances are something that is happening on a person to person basis based on interaction between one person and the other person. Now, this is something that happens on a merchant level, and this is which is far more sophisticated. So, I don't think if I should take the name of this enterprises, but this is a very big electronics chain based out in Hyderabad, Telangana. A group of people walked into the stores. What they did was they bought very high value appliances, and they made payment via UPI accounts, which were controlled by their accomplices sitting in a different state. So these people were not sitting in Telangana. They were making payments based on the screenshots that they might have sent them of the QR codes. So when the payment was made, these merchants actually checked the accounts that the payment was actually made and they have received the amount. Once they had received the amount, what they did was that because now the transaction is complete, you are now allowed to take out the electronic appliances that you had bought and you can go away with it. The actual fraud starts after this. That those accomplices who were sitting in a different state, what they did was they initiated a systematic dispute or a chargeback, claiming to their bank or the UPI application that these transactions were unauthorized. Because of this, now the merchant is faced, that is, this particular store is faced to reverse the whole amount back to the original originator, but the goods are gone. So they lose the goods, which are quite expensive, and they lose all the money that they receive for it. So here the fraudsters are using real UPI rails, they are using real bank accounts and policy mechanisms like chargebacks. The losses in these cases are usually in multiple lakhs and crores, and this is not a naive individual we're speaking of. They're organized businesses who deal with such transactions on a daily basis, and yet we have found multiple cases such as this over the period of last 5 to 6 years. So we have three different type of victims: the elderly citizens, the people of our age group, and a large retail chain. The common theme here remains that the all such transactions, all such frauds happen on a fast digital payment channel, which was being abused either through persuasion, misdirection, or any system gap. Now, then what the question that comes up is why UPI and instant payments are such attractive targets. So let's just look at some numbers. So UPI has been under the Digital India initiative has been a phenomenal success story. All right. So there are 14 billion transactions per month. There are hundreds of millions of users as well as merchants. This is a real time 24/7 transaction platform with almost no marginal cost. So individual have no cost, merchants sometimes have cost for this. And that becomes the problem. So this scale that we just spoke about, when compared to data of frauds, becomes a story which is a little bit chilling in nature. So between mid 2022 to late 2024, we saw around 27 lakhs reported UPI fraud cases totaling up to over 2,000 crore rupees. In financial year 2023 and 24 alone, we had around 13.4 lakh cases with around 1,000 crore rupees loss. And the survey, which was conducted by an organization called iServeU, suggests that 1 out of 5 people have faced some kind of UPI frauds in the last 3 years, and half of them have never complained. So the number I'm talking about of 27 lakhs reported UPI frauds and the amount as well, these are can be said to be half the actual figure. So the total loss becomes over 4,000 crores. The total cases become somewhere around 60 crores, which is a 60 lakh, which is a big number. But the question is that there have been online transaction methods available for a really long time. Why do fraudsters love this? There are three factors. The UPI transactions in practicality are irreversible. That means the money which is once taken away from your account and into two or three mule accounts. Mule accounts are something that are made on fake KYC documents and are used to further bifurcate the actual amount into multiple other amounts so that it cannot be traced out easily. So the recovery here is extremely difficult. There is the comfort of all-time access. So because UPI is available 24/7, this means that the fraudsters can really profile a person and use that information to then defraud someone. For those who had attended my last talk at the Naksh Foundation, you might remember the term I used, data profiling and threat modeling. So this kind of data that was available is now used to target the individuals who are prone to such attacks at the specific hours where they might be more leaning towards making such payments. And the third and the last part is the low friction part. For all such previous bank transactions, there used to be a human checkpoint involved. There used to be a branch of a bank which used to do all this. But with UPI, it's just taps and approvals. So now I ask you, and this is something that I'd like to know from you, that if there were 27 lakh robberies happening in a particular financial year, physically in a bank, how would you think the regulatory and policy response would be from the either the state or the police or anyone? What do you expect if this was happening in the physical world? I'll wait for 2 seconds till people type. I hope my question was clear now. Large scale reform in banking system, yes. Yeah, so that's one thing. I'm just while other people write their answers. So we see that the threat or online or digital harm in general feels less real until the numbers are large. Even if these robberies were just taking the state of Delhi into account, even these robberies, if they were not 27 lakh but 27 robberies, that would have been a large scale reform. But for a digital harm, the numbers have to be so high that the courts have to start taking cognizance of this. And it is because of this impact, it is because of this anonymity that comes with the digital world that we see there are a lot of things are not being done on this particular topic. But we will still see what are the law and the regulatory architecture around it. So most of what we have discussed, the frauds, sorry, these are essentially two things: cheating and identity misuse. So, and both of these things are done on a computer resource. So, when we look at the existing regulatory framework, we see that there are two or three regulatory frameworks available. So, first one is the IT Act of 2000. The second is Indian Penal Code, and the third one is RBI or NPCI guidelines. So, now, taking all of this and consolidating it into the definition of cheating and impersonation or identity misuse, we see that the IT Act has two sections: Section 66C and 66D. Section 66C speaks of identity theft, that is, using someone else's password, OTP, PIN, unique ID, or access to their accounts. And D speaks of cheating by impersonation using a computer resource. So it could be impersonating a bank staff member or a police or CBI, ED or judge, or just a friend over a call or WhatsApp to get you to transfer the money. These are the two things, two sections dealing with cyber frauds or cybercrime per se, on financial frauds. The other thing is criminal cheating and dishonesty, including delivery way of property, which could be the age-old Section 420 and Section 415. There are also cases of criminal breach of trust in cases where the entrusted funds or merchant settlements are siphoned. So just to put things in perspectives, legally these are not exotic cyber crimes in a separate universe. They are cheating and identity theft and breach of trust, just happening over UPI or QR instead of cash and checks. So they have to be treated that way. So a lot of times the question comes that why do we not have specific provisions for cyber crimes? We do. We're just not seeing them that way. Now comes the third category, which is Reserve Bank of India, that is RBI, NPCI, that is National Payments Corporation of India, and their directories on who bears the loss. So under the RBI, we have a few things: that we have the Payments and Settlement Systems Act of 2007, we have the RBI Ombudsman, and we have the RBI Resource Portal. So this particular act, Payments and Settlement Systems Act, gives RBI the power to regulate payment systems, which includes UPI. This is operated by the NPCI. So now RBI's liability frameworks works in this way that the electronic transactions are made out to be settled by two different parties. It is either the bank or the person who's making the transactions, or a third person who's a perpetrator. So if a fraud has happened where the fault is clearly with the bank or the particular system, then the customer's liability is zero. But they have to report the issue. But if the customer is negligent, for example, if you have shared your PIN, the liability can shift to the customer. For all of this, the timely reporting mechanism is crucial. Even if it was a bank's fault, but you delayed reporting, that could vitiate the bank or the payment system from from covering the loss. Now, RBI's integrated ombudsman scheme of 2021, these provide the channel for complaints about three things: delayed reversals, poor complaint handling, or the bank refusing to treat clear fraud as unauthorized. So, in a crux, the existing criminal law that we have is made to chase the fraudsters, and the RBI and NPCI ascertain where and how are you going to recover your amount. So, this is the whole legal part. But now let's see what the courts are saying. So, in the beginning, I spoke about the Supreme Court case. So, in the same case, as I mentioned, that the CBI told the courts that the scams of this type have already caused a damage of approximately 3,000 crores in losses, which is a huge number. And because of this, the CBI court ordered the CBI for a nationwide probe, indicating that mere FIR are not enough. Bank and the systems may need stronger fraud flagging and customer alert mechanisms. So, sorry. The courts are now not treating as a one bad phone call case, but as an organized systemic phenomenon that needs a systematic response. So, and while I'm speaking on the courts, I will also speak about the some issues with which lie with the court's execution. So this was one case in the Supreme Court. The other case is from the Delhi High Court, where as a response, what the enforcement agencies were doing, if any particular bank account was found to be a party of any such fraudulent transactions, the whole account would have been frozen. So Delhi High Court criticized this practice by freezing an entire bank account because of a small suspicious transaction. This happened with a fruit vendor who received an amount of 105 rupees, and because of this, the whole bank account was frozen. So the court said that you cannot blanket freeze an account because it could be someone's livelihood who's basically running the business through UPI. In other case, the Allahabad High Court had mentioned that if someone had voluntarily transferred an amount, they cannot later call it cyber fraud, which is something that I spoke about in the RBI section, where if it's the customer's fault, you may be implicated. Now, looking at these three instances, we are seeing that courts have to walk on a thin line. They want the fast freezes because fast freezes help catch the stolen money. Because once they are then divided to mule accounts, it becomes really, really difficult to track them back. But then over freezing undermines the livelihood and the trust in digital payments, which is also something that they do not want to do. And false claims cannot become a free exit from bad decisions. So, additionally, what we are seeing is, then I'll tell you the process of um, where this process has a very significant fault. So, I'll be speaking about the legal recourses and what you have to do in a later point of the talk. But this is something that we have noticed, that whenever there is a cyber fraud, someone files a complaint on it. The cybercrime division, the police, investigates on this particular case, and once they have completed their investigation, they submit a report. Now, this report would say, okay, so and so amount, let's say 16,000 amount from your account was taken, and this account is found in these 4 different accounts. Now it becomes your responsibility to go to the court, file an execution decree, and then get that amount recovered. But a number of times, this is the district magistrate's court, a number of times we have seen that the district magistrate courts have refused to entertain this because there was not an FIR in this case. Why? Because when this thing happened, we just the person reported it to the cybercrimes portal as they had to do. There was no need to report to file an FIR alongside. And because of this, in Delhi itself, we have seen around 3,000 cases where the people have actually understood where the money is stuck, but they have not been able to recover it. So now the question is, and I'd ask you this question: if you were designing a law enforcement protocol, how would you balance freezing accounts quickly and protecting honest businesses? Does anyone have any answer? You can even unmute and speak. All right. So then we'll move to the next section, which is the typologies of the advanced financial products. We can set a limit to the transactions done by them for a limited period. Yeah, that is something that can be done. That is called a, so that is part of a lien that is put on an account. So yeah, that is something that is done, and we have seen that for if after the Delhi High Court judgment, only the amount which is said to be problematic is now blocked in that person's account and their transactions limit. And once that account is flagged, there is a transaction limit as well as a multi-factor authentication that is required through the payment system itself. So yeah, that's a fair answer. That's one thing that can be taken into account. But yeah, now we'll move the whole families of UPI or QR frauds into clear buckets. So the first type is social engineering and impersonation. These are the friend in need scams that I spoke about, that you might get a WhatsApp message or any other type of message requesting money. It could be through cloned WhatsApp profiles or asking for urgent UPI transfers, or the digital arrest cases, which could also be fake bank or RBI or any other person impersonating someone and asking you to and saying that there has been either some suspicious activity or there has been some KYC failures, or under pressure they reveal the OTPs and authorize the UPI or IMPS transfers. So, and the third one, obviously, I mean, as I mentioned, that these are the digital arrests where the person is made to sit on a continuous video call where forged documents are used, threats are used, and basically house arrest like to transfer money based on false pretext. So the primary vulnerability in this particular type of frauds is human and not technical. So that's the thing that I spoke about, whether the policy is flawed, whether technology is flawed, or whether this is a unawareness problem. So this is an unawareness problem. Then there are QR code or collect request frauds. So in these cases, there are either malicious or tampered QR codes. So for instance, we have seen that a number of times people would paste QR codes over a shop's genuine QR code, or they send you a code claiming that it's for receiving money. And when you enter your PIN, the amount gets detected. The second type is the UPI collect request. This is a feature which used to exist. It doesn't exist anymore. But you get a request saying that you are getting some cash back or a refund or a prize. And when you approve this, you are made to enter a PIN, your own bank PIN, to verify that it's your account. And then all the money is pulled from your account. The NPCI, as I just said, that they have started to phase out this person to person collection request by the end of this year, because they are mostly low usage and they are one of the biggest contributors of fraud. Then there's the third factor, which is the fake confirmations and policy abuse. So in these cases, you would have fake payment screenshots, maybe through clone apps or through clone images, where merchant hand over the goods seeing a doctored UPI confirmation images, or the Hyderabad case that I spoke about, where the real payments are made, the goods are taken, and then it is later disputed en masse to exploit chargeback mechanisms. Now coming to the to a little complex situations, which is the fourth one, which is device and SIM layer attacks. So first one is done through remote access apps. So usually we get a person would get a call from a bank employee asking to saying that you might have a KYC or any payment status that is not verified. They would ask you to install a screen sharing app or a remote control tool for support. They then watch the UPI pin entry and initiate their own UPI transactions. Or there could be a SIM swap, where the duplicate SIM cards are generated, which allow the interception of OTPs, and they are quietly used to take over UPI linked accounts. Then the fifth one and the last typology of this is mule accounts and instant transfers, which are IMPF, IMPS, NEFT, and RTGS. So once the money is pulled, so once the money is drawn out of your account, that money is routed via IMPS, NEFT, or RTGS into multiple mule accounts across various jurisdictions and states in the country. What that does is it creates a jurisdictional problem for the enforcement agencies, where the time taken to verify that particular account in that particular state is far more than it would be normally if the money was into a single account. What that does is that gives the chance for the fraudsters to take out that money or further distribute it into other areas. So because of this, when the Delhi High Court case happened, the court asked the RBI to roll out beneficiary name verification system for RTGS and NEFT accounts. So what that does is it works in the similar way we have for the UPI systems. So whenever you're scanning a code, you see that the bank name of that particular account holder is present. So it could be so and so, son of so and so, written right after you scan the particular QR code that verifies the actual account linked to that particular UPI. It reduces misdirection transfers and fraud. So after that, now we have seen what the law is, we have seen what the judiciary has done. Now we'll see what the system is doing, that is the RBI and the NPCI. So for RBI, the reported digital payment fraud cases shot up roughly by 300% between, as I said, financial year 2022 to 2024. After this, the Reserve Bank of India proposed a digital payment intelligence program, which was tasked for real-time fraud data sharing among banks, NPCI, card networks, and major apps. So if any cybercrime is reported for on a particular account, that particular information is then transferred to every bank and payment initiative, so they are aware of that one particular account. Then the new authentication framework is now being put out between this year and the next year, where there would be two-factor authentication for most digital payments. There would be a risk-based setup authentication for high-risk transactions. So as Yasser has pointed out, that there could be a limit on transactions done by them. So this is a step up where if a particular account is flagged, then that particular account's transactions can be subject to further scrutiny before a payment can be made. So by doing this, the right to livelihood of that particular person who may be fraudulently involved is not taken away, while also ensuring that the defrauded amount remains safe. And the RBI officials have publicly warned about data leakage. So we have seen that in the previous session that there was a PhonePe data breach where all of the database of all financial records of all the users were being sold for a mere sum of 19,000 rupees. So because of this, the RBI mandate says that the institution must treat KYC transaction and device data as sensitive assets and not just paperwork. Now, NPCI is actually the body that controls UPI. So, NPCI has now updated UPI compliance framework, which includes display of beneficiary name, as I just mentioned, that it is not the name that you enter for on your UPI app that is shown, but your actual linked bank account's name. So that's one thing. There is a tightening response time so that the timeouts and reversals can happen faster, shrinking the fraudster's window to move the money on. So this is done so that the mule accounts which are created, so because of which the traceability was becoming a problem, can be reduced. And there is also a limit on balance inquiry APIs to prevent misuse for reconnaissance. So this is also something happens that there are APIs within the payment systems that are constantly checking your bank balance, and you are doing that yourself as well. So there would be a limit to that, so that the fraudsters, if they get access to a person's device, cannot check the bank balance and take out the whole amount. Or if the platform is breached, then also this cannot happen. The NPCI has also discontinued, as I said, person-to-person collect method requests, because they were not being used by users a lot and they were very highly being used by fraudsters. So with the help of the law, with the help of the court, and now with the very, very fresh measures taken by the RBI and NPCI, we are moving from a user beware system to a system aware system. That came out a bit weird, but yeah. Now we are not saying that the user has to be aware. We are saying that the system has to be aware. And we are now trying to engineer away whole categories of the fraud. So for instance, the collect request would be taken out once the P2P collect scene is taken away. So now we'll be speaking of the practical roadmap, where if you are a victim, what should you do? So if you are a victim, there are first few steps that are taken within the initial hours of the frauds. So if you feel like your device has been compromised, you need to log out of UPI apps, change the UPI pins, and if necessary, block the SIM card. One second. Yeah, sorry. Once you have logged out of your UPI app, you have changed your UPI pin, and you've blocked your SIM, you need to also call your bank If it was just a transaction that was unauthorized, you need to flag that transaction. If you were defrauded by someone, you need to flag that fraud and do so on a written platform. Either get an email or a ticket number. If you're calling them, note down the ticket number because that is something that helps at a later stage. And parallelly, file a complaint on the cybercrime portal, which is cybercrime.gov.in, or by calling 1930. It is crucial to understand that all of these steps have to be done immediately um, after you have been defrauded, because as the RBI mandate says that if there has been a timely complaint, then the user liability can be taken away. So this is something that you do in the first few hours. And within the first few days, you have to escalate in writing to the bank, referring to this RBI liability mandate that I just spoke about, and asking provisional credit if appropriate. So you can say, while you're investigating, the RBI mandate says so that you can give me a provisional amount for the amount that was transacted. You can transfer that amount from yourself while you try to recover that amount. If they do not do that, if the bank does not do that, which in most of the cases they won't, you you can complain to the RBI integrated ombudsman citing delay or the refusal to treat a clear fraud as unauthorized or poor investigation. The next thing and the one thing that you have to parallelly do. So the moment you do the first few hours steps, step one, and you have to follow step three parallelly. You have to insist on registration of an FIR under the said section I spoke about, which was 66C, D, and cheating provisions, which are 420, 419, 415. Sharing all the digital evidences, screenshot, call records, emails, everything. So that's why I've been asking to make sure that everything is in writing. In cases of larger value, which we have seen in the case of that old couple, or in a few other cases, that if there is a large amount involved, you can directly, and if you have been a victim of such a thing, you can directly challenge this through writ before your concerned high court and seek for a more active investigation. So a number of times this would happen that your friend who you know would genuinely ask you money, but they were being defrauded. So when the investigation happens, your account also comes into the highlight because your account also transferred this certain amount of money to your friend who transferred it to a fraudster. Because of this, your account could also be placed in the in the accused list, and and because you are now stuck, and if it's a big amount, you can, even after reaching the bank, you can go to the high court and seek some relief there. So with this, just to uh, really consolidate everything in one go, there are 10 things you have to do. You never enter your UPI pin for receiving money. UPI pin is made only for sending money. No bank, CBI, or ED or police officer will ever ask you for your pin or OTP, or ask you to install remote access app. If they do so, if you face such a case, just tell them the name of this case, which is called Virendra Khanna versus State of Karnataka, where this becomes a part, and this UPI pins, passwords, and everything become a part and parcel of a person's identity. and that cannot be shared with the enforcement agencies unless they have a specific warrant mandating that. Always read the screen whenever you're making UPI transactions. Check for the beneficiary's name shown in the UPI app before you tap pay. If it doesn't match, you should not pay. Don't scan random QR codes or forwards from posters or phone call without verifying the merchant in front of you. I would ideally recommend that most of us have multiple accounts, bank accounts. So keep one account for UPI payment only, leave the rest. In this one particular amount, you only keep a very limited amount, which is a low balance accounts for your day-to-day UPI or QR transactions, and set a daily limit on your app. If you want to remove it, you can remove it. But in case of a breach, in case you're defrauded, that daily limit would save you from a huge loss. Rather than checking your transaction history, it is suggested that you check your statements, the bank statements regularly. Usually what we have seen that you would find a number of times we have found this that before a large fraud, some small test debits were made just to see if a person catches on to this or not. If they do not catch on to this, then they make the larger fraud. So it is essential, it is crucial that you are ensuring to check your bank statements and turn on alerts for any and all kind of transactions that are being made. After that, never purely rely on this is for merchant and businesses, but I'm telling you because some of our relatives would be merchant and business owners. So never purely rely on screenshots, confirm credit, and physically secure your QR codes. So whenever for anyone who is now using those QR code machines, it is you should be using tapes or tamper-proof stickers to ensure that they are not being transferred with. Your parents, your especially your parents, your grandparents, your elderly members of your family are to be trained by you to with examples of fake payments with phishing exercises on what to be careful about. And yeah, that's it. So if we combine all these kind of behavioral shifts and safe practices, we would be safe from even the most advanced financial frauds. And hopefully, while we are doing this, the legislations as well as the technology measures will catch up on these practices. So yeah, I think I have only a few minutes left, so I'm happy to take questions if there are any. There are any.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening session. This session has set a strong foundation for our work ahead. We're now encouraging the flow for questions. Participants, please drop your questions in the chat. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I'll call your name one by one. We'll take as many questions as the time allows.
Yeah, I'll just write it down in the chat box while you guys send the other questions. forward to make an alert when suspicious transactions happen. No, you at the moment, except for utilizing some of AI help, which is now available on PhonePe, there is no other method for making an alert. But I would not recommend using that AI method, because then that particular uh, company has access to all your financial records. What you can do is you can make it a habit of for every day or 2 days to check your bank statements, because the memory of the transaction is still fresh and you can see any transactions other than that. So that's something I would say. There's no automated way at the moment. How can we educate the target groups, children and adults, regarding this type of crime, as most of them won't be able to understand such technicals? Yeah, that is a big issue. Yeah, sorry. Just to tell them, I mean, I think the idea is to tell them more about phishing exercises. So what you can do is you can Google the Google for Google phishing games. So there you will find a number of phishing exercises that are happening, and it gives you interactive reasonings on why, whenever you are receiving any link, whenever you're receiving any website link or any other link, what to look for. So that's one thing which is interactive, very simple when it comes to receiving links, fraudulent links. The other thing that I spoke about, which is to um, for children, because they're not making as many payments, except for the gaming apps, there could be parental controls which are made on the devices that are being used by children. For elders, uh, you have to simplify things a bit. Essentially, doing the phishing exercises again, and other than that, what you need to do is to create examples of what is happening. So um, just, and this is not a very, I mean, I'm not proud of this advice, but make them a bit paranoid about things. It usually helps. So whenever there is a doubt, ask them to call you up, ask them to clear things with you, and you can verify all those things. But I think, and the best solution to this is being paranoid. So the technicalities you can handle, just make them paranoid. The bank have collaborated effort. Can bank have collaborated effort while financial loss happen? How can bank be integrated with the customer so that the same safeguard can happen anyway? So there are steps being taken with the RBI mandate and bank response time. So for now, what is being done is whenever there is whenever there is a report of any financial frauds, and if you're reporting this to the bank, that particular amount in the account for which it was transacted gets put in lien. So lien is something that, so for instance, a fraudster took 16,000 from my account to his own account. For the time being, his account is not blocked. Only 16,000 in his account becomes blocked. And that will remain blocked till the whole investigation is complete. So the bank and customer collaboration has been working this way. There are more steps being taken by utilizing better beneficiary name verifications and now two-factor authentication, just to make sure that there are much more safeguards in place for any fraudulent crime to take place. So that is something which is happening. It is very slow, but I would say a multi-stakeholder and open access of the regulatory practices has to be involved. Most of the private banks do not share their internal complaints uh, internal complaints module on how they're regulating complaints and are attending to the complaints. So that kind of transparency has to be taken out. So these are a few things that can happen. Obviously, some of them are happening, but more transparency and open access is something that we are still looking for. Uh, yeah, for the fake UPI link or the normal link, the best exercise is to take that exercise, that phishing game exercise that I spoke about. Most of the times, there would be very, very minor things in the link that you would receive. Thankfully, now with the UPI payment methods, you are usually the old links are not working. The new links usually have the bank, the facilitators link in available. So it would be either IBL, YBL, or OK Access or OK ICI, all of those. That validates that the particular link is KYC authenticated, but still it could be KYC through a fake account. So whenever you're making a UPI transaction, you have to look for the name that appears and match that name to the person you are sending the amount. Just to be sure that these are not two different names, these are the correct spellings of name, and take a record of all such transactions. That's all you can do. When I reach in a general shopping website via Google, they access the contact and name details of mine automatically message me in WhatsApp recently. Okay, so this is something that I had covered in the previous session that I took. So essentially, what you are seeing here is your cookie data being saved. There is usually the opt out available now under the DPDPA. So either that opt out would be shown in the WhatsApp message that you have been receiving, or you can go to the website, that particular website itself, shopping website, and unsubscribe with your. You can enter your name and details and unsubscribe for all the newsletters and any kind of marketing transactions with it. But whenever you're usually going on such websites, shopping websites, be very sure of using minimal data and data which is not directly linked to you. For some websites, you can use temporary emails, temporary phones, phone numbers which are readily available on the internet to just order the stuff. You will get it delivered on your home. Nevertheless, you do not need to use your actual accounts. Is there any scheme or policy of the bank with regards to cyber crime? So RBI keeps pushing out a number of schemes and regulations on this. If you visit the website, you will find a number of them. There's a lot, which would specifically relate to specific kind of crimes, such as digital arrest, such as cyber frauds linked to UPI and QR codes methods. So just accessing the RBI website would give you a lot of such schemes and policies. And yeah, for the two other cases that I was speaking about, so this wherein the Karnataka state of Karnataka specifically talks about passwords when there is a device seizure, and this can in itself be used in case of these house arrest thingies, digital arrest. Sorry, and the Delhi High Court case. I'll just put out that name too. Just give me 1 second. Yep. Yeah, the Delhi High Court case is. Anything else? It's versus you or I, this one, the Delhi High Court one. Neelkant is one of the respondents, but you are is a major respondent. I think, Manyata, then we can wrap it up.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, again for addressing every question with such clarity. This session has already reshaped how our trainers understand digital risk. With that, CyberShield 6 days capacity building and training workshop comes to an end. On behalf of Naksh Foundation and Project CyberShield, we extend our sincere gratitude to Mr. Saeed Mohammad Haroon for delivering an insightful and engaging session. His clarity and real world examples have given all of us a strong beginning to this journey. We would request that you to fill out the post assessment form via the QR code on the present screen. And there is also one important announcement. We would like to inform you that the quiz based on CyberShield 6 days capacity building and training workshop will be conducted on the coming Saturday, starting from 7 p.m. onwards at the same scheduled time. Participants who score more than 50% in the quiz will have specifically mentioned on their certificates. Participants who scored below 50% will receive a certificate only if they have attended all 6 days of the workshop with a minimum attendance of 75%. Please ensure your participants and best performance. Until then, stay aware, stay curious, and keep enlightening the shield. Good night.